Hi everyone, we're reading chapter 27 of Del Toro Moon by Darby Carshit. We trotted and loped and trotted again along the road toward town, our shadows before us, a cloud of dust behind. Fatigue and worry and numbering grief weighing me down like a sweat-soaked saddle pat, slumped on Ringo. I half listened to Roman arguing with Kathleen on his cell phone. Slipping it into his shirt pocket, he blew out a long breath. She wanted to drive out and meet us, but I asked her to stay put for now. He rubbed the back of his neck. She was not happy about it. I can imagine, Dad said. How much trouble are you in? Vasco, Roman said in response. Once we are finished here, let us keep going. I hear Wyoming is nice. We all laughed, except for Izzy. Sure hope you wanted Kathleen to stay behind only because of her lack of experience, and not because she's a female. Hunting knows no gender, and I do know. Isn't my daughter one of the first hunters of her age in the Morrigan? Does the Mara not live up to her name by the number of kills she has participated in? So lower your hackles, my fiery Isabel. It dawned on me that there weren't a lot of female hunters, at least not Dad's age. Well, except for his sister. Dad once mentioned that our Aunt Christina had been one heck of a hunter. There seemed to be more female hunters our age, like Joe. Uh, Maybe it was a generational thing? Man, I must be really pooped if that was the kind of stuff worming around inside my skull. I guess everyone else was tired too, because we jogged in silence the rest of the way to Huffrano. Skirting the town, we rode behind a group of storage units, one repair shop, and a row of backyards. A pair of little kids playing in one of the yards stopped and waved as we passed by. I waved back. I liked your horse, one of the girls called. Hey, thanks, Rigo shouted over his shoulder. Dude, I hissed, you can't do stuff like that. Why? They're kids. They still believe in magic. Riding, the calm before the storm. The land became hillier and the houses farther apart and fancier. Turk Tucked on the side of rolling knolls, dotted with pinon and juniper trees. Each house boasted $1 million view of the maze, and the prairie, the distant Sangre de Cristos. Pausing by the side of the grim dirt and the gravel road that wound through the subdivision, we stopped and looked around. We'll split up, Dad said. I'll take Matt. Roman, you and Ben. He paused. The rumbly hum of an approaching vehicle. It grew louder. Then a white SUV sped around the corner of the low hill. I spotted Albury behind the wheel, his mouth a perfect O. He slammed on the brakes. The vehicle skidded and then sent up a cloud of dust. With a whine of gears, he spun around in a spray of gravel and raced back the way he had come. After him, Dad shouted. We were galloping before the words left Dad's mouth. I bent low over the bay's neck, eyes watering from the dust and the sting of the black mane on my face. We rounded a wide curve and burst out in a straight section. Aubrey sped up, opening the distance. He's getting away, I hollered over the wind. Not for me, Rigo panted. He stretched out, head low, and chuffed in rhythm with his stride. He pulled away from Izzy, then inched past Vasco until he reached Turk's hindquarters. To my utter astonishment, he shifted into a higher gear, Anderslian overdrive. Flying along, he rolled up alongside the black until they raced neck and neck. A block ahead, Albury wrenched the car to the left. It fishtailed over onto a narrower road and disappeared behind a strand of pinyon trees. I caught a glimpse of his vehicle between the branches. Dad leaned forward. Turk, cross country. We must cut him off. Rigo leaped the low embankment. Turk matched him stride for stride. We tore through the bushes. Pinyon branches slapped me as Rigo wove around them. I crouched lower in the saddle. Flashes of white through the trees just ahead of us. There he is! My excitement faded as the sight of a high, wound iron fence. Albury sped through a gate that stood open across the road. It began to close slowly behind him. Rigo! I see him. Another burst of speed. Behind me, Dad shouted, ordering me to stop. I knew I should, but something inside me wouldn't let me. Instead, I leaned forward even further, my cheek close to Rigo's neck. Foam stretched his brown coat, whipped cream on dark chocolate, then went screaming my ears. We whipped through the gate. My knee whacked against the post, shooting a white-hot pain up my leg. I winced and swallowed a cry. One of Rigo's black hooves clipped the iron railing. He staggered a step, then regained his stride. A dull clang. The automatic gate shut behind us. Albury's vehicle squealed to a stop in front of an enormous timber frame house. The man jumped out and pulled something covered in a puffy jacket from his black seat. Clutching the bundle in his arms, he fled around the side of the house and disappeared. Gaining on him, we rounded the corner, then skidded to a halt. Chunks of sod flew up from Rigo's hooves, divots on a golf course. In the middle of the yard, Albert crouched down, his hands wrapped around the red casket. In the daylight, the container looked battered and worn and molted with what I hoped and prayed wasn't dry blood. The chest jumped and twisted in his hold. With each lurch, the lip flapped up and down. He threw himself on top of the coffer, trying to pin it down. Mace in hand, I leaped out of the saddle, breaking both Dad's and Alcid's #1 rule: stand back. I can close it up. More of those things. They're in there, Albert's voice, with a shrill with panic. He rode the lid as it buckled again. If they escape, I know. If you'd get out of the way, I can seal it, I yelled. Over the howls coming from the coffer, I inched closer until I was right in front of the man's mace. In front of the man. Mace held out. My war brother kept place behind me. Move! Rigo placed out a brassy neigh. Albert jerked, then rolled off and staggered to his feet. Hands held in front of him as if warding off the horse. Sorry about this. Rigo reared and struck the man's head with a hoof. I winced at the dull thud. Without a sound, Albert slumped to the ground in a boneless heap. The stallion stood over the figure. Hurry, Matt. I raised the mace. Then I froze. Holy beans! What was that phrase? I bit down on my lip, willing my stupid brain to remember. Stamius contra? Rigo danced in place, lashing his tail like a twitchy cat. What are you waiting for? I don't remember the words, I moaned. Holy mother of pearl, where was my father when I needed him most? Or else Sid? Bang! The lid blew open. A cloud of smoke billowed out and enveloped me. Only I didn't feel the smoke. It felt wet and clammy like fog or rain, and smelled something awful, moldy leaves on or the muddy bottom of a puddle drying under a jelly sun. The stench clogged my nostrils. With a soft hiss, the cloud coiled around my head once, leaving my cheeks wet, then shot toward the mountain and vanished. Before I could draw a clean breath, something else moved inside the chest. A hand, with twiggy fingers and bark-like flesh, curled over the coffer's lip. I watched in horror as it fingered out the lash. How could a box so small hold something the size of a human? Worse? Was it alone? Rigo paused the ground. Now would be a good time. Stemius contra. My voice ratcheted up and down with terror. Out of nowhere, the Latin phrase leaped into my head. I planted my feet, grasped the mace in both fists, and pointed the iron head at the coffer. I'm packing a loaded mace, so keep your creepy self back in there. The hand retreated until only the tips of split and broken nails showed. For a second, I wondered if the thing had tried to claw its way out. Triple yeesh. Rigo! I called over my shoulder. Take cover! Heart pounding, I scrunched up my face and sucked in a deep breath. Stamius contra malum! I shouted and thrust my mace against the chest. Neon blue brightness blasted my vision. Then something the size of a Mack truck hit me in the chest. I swore it drove right through my body. The sensation of flying backwards, then blackness, then nothing. Why was Turk kicking me in the head? At least that's what it felt like. I blinked, light screwing my eyeballs, which were already beat to heck. Matt? Fingers squeezed my shoulder. I blinked again, keeping my lids at half-mast, then peered up at my father on one knee beside me. Anger and something else darkened his face. For a moment, I wondered what I'd done. Then I remembered. Sorry, Dad. My voice crackled like a wooden barn door. What in the name of all that is holy were you thinking? You're forgetting, Dad. Ben appeared. He squatted by my side. Matt's 12. He's not supposed to think. Here. He held out a glass of water. Got you some Tylenol from Albert's house. Sorry, but he didn't have any baby aspirin. Dad eased me into a sitting position. My head throbbed with each heartbeat. After downing the tablet in a long gulp of water, I looked around. The red casket sat motionless, just as still. Aubrey laid sprawled where he had fallen. A purple lamp already stood out on his forehead. Nearby, Rigo was drinking from a bucket while Roman knelt by the stallion's left front leg. He was wrapping the bay's fetlock with an elastic bandage. There, the hunter pinned it in place, then rose with a grunt. Tight enough? The warhorse shifted his weight to side. Feels good. I'll have Kathleen check it when we get back home. I mean, back to Del Toro's ranch. What happened? Great. Someone else is hurt because of me. Remorse was becoming too familiar. Not really a goal. Took a bad step when the blast hit me. Twisted my leg is all. Rigo shook his head gingerly. My ears are still some ringing though. So it really worked? I nodded toward the coffer, then immediately regretted the sudden movement. It appears so. My father took an arm. Come on, we need to leave before the neighbors show up. Wanting to know what caused that explosion, I clung to him until my knees decided they weren't going to fold under me. Where are all the others? Outside the gate. The blast from your mace knocked out the electricity and short-circuited the lock. We, Roman, Ben, and myself, came over the fence. You should have seen him, Matt. Dad's boots never touched the top rail when he was climbing so fast. With Dad and Ben holding my elbows, I wobbled around the house and down the driveway. Rigo limped behind me. Beside him, Roman carried the coffer under one arm. What about Aubrey? I felt better with each step, even though something was dancing the flamenco in my skull. Are we just going to leave him there? Dad shrugged. A blow to the head, nothing more. He is lucky to be alive after all this. Do you think he's going to tell others about us? Ben asked. Reaching the gate, he began searching the post by lock. Should be a manual release around here somewhere, he murmured. Who would believe it? Roman shifted the coffer to his other arm. No matter how he tried to explain what happened, people would think he was loco en la cabeza. No, your family's secret are safe for now. What are we going to do with this chest? Izzy struck her nose to the fence, hampering Ben's efforts. Vasco and I will return to the cave. For today, I'll push it through the tunnel as far as I can. Tomorrow, can figure out how to get it the rest of the way. Click. The gate slowly swung open. Ben stepped aside with a wave and cocky grin. See? I knew all that breaking and entering would pay off someday. He laughed at the expression of her father's face. Just kidding, Pop. That's the end of chapter 27. I'm going to also be reading chapter 8 tonight, which is the last chapter of Del Toro Moon. If you liked, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the comments. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.